Hi, everyone. I'm Ori Gately here at the Advocate Corner, and today we are talking to Abby Belasco, who is a mom and an educator and an extraordinary individual who came to me with an interesting situation, and I'm going to let her talk about it a little bit. And also, I want you to know what she does because she, being an educator, also has her own tutoring business, Dear Abby Tutors, out in Boulder, Colorado. And it's a phenomenal opportunity for the way she connects children with educators. And really, it's something unbelievable. So, hi, Abby. How are you?
Hi there. Thank you, Arit. Um, so I live in Denver actually, and I have been out here for 25 years. And I taught third and fourth grade for 15 years. And then when we had our second child, I stopped teaching in the classroom and I just continued doing tutoring. And then when COVID happened, the need for tutors kind of exploded. And then my business kind of exploded. So Dear Abby Tutors now has 10 teachers that are working with kids all across the country, some in mostly in person, but some online, and trying to help students where they are and helping them get their needs met, whether it means putting them on an IEP or a 504 plan or Orton Gillingham training. Kids really need support right now, and I'm seeing that more and more, and it's definitely helped being a mom and understanding the mom side of learning and how those things work. But that's kind of how I got started with Dear Abby Tutors, and that's it.
It's amazing. And it's interesting. You mentioned how today we're seeing children needing more support, right? And with that support, we're also seeing how parents need that support. And in your line of work with what you do with tutoring and the support children need, you mentioned to me how you've noticed like the parents needing that educational support as well. So,
Yeah.
it was interesting because it's a great way to segue into let's talk about you and your situation and what came, what brought you here. So, yeah, like what was your situation before you and I started working together?
So I have been working to help like build a bridge between home and school because there used to be this really great triangle: home, school, and student, and lots of working together. And since COVID, there has been definitely less connection between what's going on at home and what's going on at school. I think a lot of parents are very curious as to what's going on, and I also think that having their kids at home for weeks at a time was very eye-opening to a lot of parents, and realizing, oh, my child kind of pretends to do math, but they really don't understand how to subtract. Or they really struggle with reading and they wait for me to do it. So I definitely deal with a lot of parents who are ready to pull out their hair because either the teacher doesn't understand what they need or the school is not willing to meet some of their child's needs. And especially because we are in a it's a crisis situation in terms of mental health and our children. Um, it, it Over the past few months, we have had some difficulties with our son, who is about to be 10, in his fourth grade classroom because he was not bringing anything home. He was not sharing any learning that was going on. He was not involved in learning. He didn't really care about it. And this is a really smart kid who in third grade was completely engaged, was reading chapter books, was excited about his learning, and would come home every day and say, "Hey, mom, we did this great activity." And I wasn't getting any of that. So we also were dealing with a diagnosis of ADHD. And I feel like a lot of kids right now are dealing with ADHD, partly because of technology and the enormous use of technology in our lives. We're using it right now to do this. So it's definitely a double-edged sword for me. But I just wanted to help the teacher help my son. And I was being told, no, that wasn't a possibility. I then engaged with the principal. I tried to engage with, I mean, he was seeing a therapist. He was taking medication. We were trying to do all of the right things. And unfortunately, the school was not really listening to what we had to say. And I believe we started talking right around Thanksgiving, because at that point we were ready to pull my son out of public school and try and find a private school for him. Um, and I was pulling my hair out. And my husband and I were spending so much time sending emails back and forth, not getting responses, and not hearing from what was actually going on in the classroom. And I think it woke the school up, and they said, oh, there's actually a kid here who's not learning, who's not engaged, and who is causing problems. I often feel about both of my children that the devil makes work for idle hands. And when they're not engaged, they're making problems. So I was trying all sorts of different ways with therapy and with talking to different people. And that's when I stumbled across something that you had posted. And I was like, we need to get Orit because we need help. We can't do this on our own.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I remember when we started talking, when we first had our first conversation. Tell me a little bit about, what were you feeling like? What were you going through as a parent, seeing that your child's having these struggles? What was that like for you?
It was heartbreaking.
Right.
My son was absolutely miserable, and I just no longer trusted the teacher. And I wasn't trusting the public school system to do what was in his best interest.
Right.
We'd never had this problem before. Other teachers were accommodating. They could make changes. They could allow him to chew gum if he needed to, have different types of seats. And I just kept being told no. So I was completely frustrated because, as his mother and also as an educator, I knew that if you let him stand up, or you let him chew gum, or you let him go on a rocking chair or something, then his brain is going to start working. But what ended up happening was he started getting into, I don't want to go to school. I don't like this. This is awful.
Right.
And we needed to make some sort of change, that we could not continue going on because we weren't getting any work done ourselves. And we need to do that.
Right. And I remember when we started, your husband was even like, this is taking so much of my time, that
Yeah,
you needed a change. You needed a big change,
definitely.
right?
And our children are a piece of our heart.
Yeah.
So, and as a classroom teacher, that's what I used to tell parents.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that this is a piece of your heart, and I will take care of your students. I will put their needs
Right.
first.
Right.
And building that connection and that communication, I felt like was so important, and it was just lacking. we
Right.
we were lacking that connection.
So the school was actually, I remember we were talking about how that homeschool connection and the communication and the clarity of what was really happening
Yeah, that's
was
you were
tough right now to
amazing with
get
that.
there. So
You
yeah,
were.
so what results did you see? Like how did it occur? Like you and I started chatting, we started working together. Now
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about, what results did you start seeing from working with an advocate like me?
Definitely. So one of the issues with being the mom,
Mm-hmm.
is that there's a lot of emotion involved.
Yes.
And you were amazing about taking out the emotion and removing that from the conversation, because it was really about facts.
Mm-hmm.
What 504 accommodations did he need? What was he getting? And where's the data on this? Because it really is data driven.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it wasn't until the other day that I got some reading assessments back. Like it, it just, things before you were not clicking. And then when we started to engage with you, and you were helping us write the emails, you were taking the emotion out of it, and you were giving us really um, simplified pieces that they could do in the classroom to make some changes.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that's really, and one of the biggest pieces was that we started asking for that restorative conversation, which has taught me so much about how there's miscommunication in our world, and
Mhm.
it causes lots of problems. And if the fact that we could sit down, we had a scheduled restorative conversation where everybody who was a player in this situation came to talk, and my son got to share, the teacher got to share, and everybody could be heard.
Mhm.
And I think that really validated the entire situation for all of us, because I didn't want to just rip my kid out of the class and say, here, put him somewhere else. We needed to deal with some of the problems.
Right.
He needed to admit that he was wrong, but he also wanted the teacher to admit that she was wrong. So
Right.
I think that restorative conversation was phenomenal. You taught me so much about that and how it can make changes. And the other part was, we received a call last week that they decided, because there was several students who had left that classroom, that he could switch to a new classroom. So I am thrilled with the results. We tried some things, it didn't work. And then the school responded in a very appropriate way. And my son is now getting what he needs.
True.
And it's phenomenal. And I cannot thank you enough.
No, of course. And I think it was because I know one of the things you mentioned to me was how prior to working with me, you had been sending emails, you were trying to communicate with the school, but it seemed like maybe it wasn't landing the way you were hoping it would land.
No.
And then
Yes.
once we started working together and reworking some of the way that communication is being handled between home and
Yes.
school, all of a sudden, what did you start noticing with that?
They were responding multiple times a day. I mean, before we would
Mhm.
write and crickets, we would hear nothing.
Right.
And then when you were writing it, it was clear and concise, exactly what we wanted, why we wanted it, and changes started to occur.
Yep.
He started being taken on walking breaks. He started getting more movement, and they started to realize, oh, these are diagnosed issues. This isn't just, some run of the mill kid, but when you were involved, they were making some changes, and they knew that we were trying to keep them accountable.
Yeah. And I think that's also one of the things I remember being a change as well is when you had asked me to attend one of your meetings
Mhm.
because you were so concerned that you were able to, and this is prior to the restorative conversation meeting that you had, but you had asked me to also attend a meeting with you guys. How was that for you, having an advocate attend a meeting with you? Because I think this was the first time you've ever had someone
Oh,
sit in a meeting with you. How was that
definitely.
for you? How did that work out for
Um,
you?
I really enjoyed you being there. I felt like you had our best interest in mind. And um, we don't get advocates. It doesn't just happen. You have to find somebody that you trust and that you feel comfortable with and that has your best interest in mind, and my son's best interest.
Mhm.
And because you have such a vast experience from being a teacher, from being an administrator, you understand the language of the school and how it will work, and also what it is that they won't listen to, because if you just come in yelling and screaming, it's going to fall on deaf ears.
Mhm. Yeah.
But having you in that meeting kept me calm,
Mhm.
kept me more in control, and also um, helped move things along in a positive direction.
Right.
Um, they Schools don't have all the answers. We don't
No.
expect them to have every single answer and get everything absolutely right.
Right.
But the fact that you had our son's best interest in mind
Mhm.
was the most wonderful thing. It was just phenomenal. And I felt like, it was almost like your kid coming in and you're saying, here I am, and I'm going to stand up for him. And you're not going to bully us over and push us away, because he is allowed to have an education
Yeah,
in
he's
a public
protected.
school.
Yep, he's protected.
He is
That's right.
protected. So
That's right.
that really helped, and knowing that you were on my side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So is it safe to say, like, how do you feel now that we've been working together for about 2 months? Like, how is it for you now? What's your situation like?
Well, we were ready to pull him out of school.
Mm-hmm.
We were definitely ready to pull him out and put him into private school and spend a lot of money on school. And now he's excited to go to school. He runs towards the bus.
Oh,
He
yeah.
likes what's going on in the classroom. He feels valued,
Mm.
and he feels like he's part of the classroom. You know, they do classroom meetings every morning, and he is part of that, as opposed to in the past, oh, you're misbehaving, you need to leave.
Right. Yeah.
um, and there are not bad children. There are
No.
children that are struggling, and they need our support, and as adults we need to take them by the hand and sit with them and say, I will help you, I am here to guide you. So I feel fantastic. My son is so much happier. I'm working. My husband is working. There are other things that we're doing besides, oh, what's going on? Did you get a call? Did you get a call? He wants us to pick him up from school. What should we do? Should we pick him up or should we leave him? And we were constantly having these struggles because he didn't want to go to school. And you want him to get an education, but you also want him to feel like someone cares.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to get a teeny bit personal here about how has working with an advocate changed your relationship with your spouse, with your husband?
Wow, that's a big one.
If you don't mind, because I know
Yeah,
that when things are tough in the home, me as a parent as well, when things are tough, it can impact my relationship with my husband, because we're emotionally in a certain headspace.
yeah,
And yet when things kind of change and our kids are happy,
yeah.
yeah, what was it like for you and your husband?
It definitely changed the dynamic because we
Mm-hmm.
would go to bed and like his name was just on our mind. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? He's
Mm-hmm.
struggling. That was all we were being able to think about.
Right.
Um, and working with you allowed him to continue running his business
Yeah.
so that he could provide for the family,
Mm-hmm.
and do what he does well, because this is what you do well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I am thrilled that you are going to be able to help us when it comes to middle school issues and high
Mm-hmm.
school issues, because when you have a kid who has special needs, whether they're neurodivergent, learning disabilities, whatever it is, every year is like a whole new adventure. Is this going to
Yeah.
work? Is that going to work? How are they going to connect? And knowing that I have you on my side, and you will help us make the best decisions for him, will be monumental to
Sure.
our relationship as husband and wife, and also in our family, because we are spending so much energy and attention um, on this one particular issue that we were not getting a resolution with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It must have been very challenging. So, did you have any fears before investing in me? Like, is there anything that you were concerned about?
No, I really didn't have any fears. We were debating, like, should we contact a lawyer?
Right.
So that was one of the questions that I had in my mind, like, is this what happens before you get a lawyer? Is this the direction that we're going? And we really didn't want to spend money and time fighting to change classrooms. Like, it doesn't seem like it's that difficult of a problem to solve. But I definitely felt like I trusted you, and I knew you were after my best interest. The fact that I could call you, like, you can't call teachers at home and talk to them and roll through different things with them. And you can't call the principal crying and saying, oh my gosh, he just did that. But
Right.
you definitely had his best interest in mind. And it was just phenomenal.
Thank you. Thanks. So what did you try in the past? Because we started working together and you said you had mentioned, like, I did try a bunch of things in the past. What were some things that you may have tried in the past that you were like, this isn't working, this isn't working?
Well, sending letters that were going nowhere. That
Mm,
was one of them. Um, Also, I have tried through his experience with camps and stuff like that,
mhm,
going into the space and being there with him to see how the interactions are occurring. And
mhm,
unfortunately, the school wouldn't let me come in the classroom. And
mhm,
I know it would have changed the dynamics, but
mhm.
I
Yeah.
wanted a bird's eye view to see what was actually happening. Like if there had been a video camera showing this is what's happening while he's at school, I think it would have helped me to understand. Um,
Mhm.
but one thing that has always helped him is moving.
Right.
So whether it's going and jumping on the trampoline, skateboarding, skiing, swimming, he's a mover.
Right.
So that's where I just kept trying to say, like, if you let him do this, then I think he'll follow your directions. If you let him do this, then he'll follow your directions. And I felt like we were just hitting a brick wall. Every
Right.
time we asked them to do something, it was no, that's not going to work. That's not a possibility. And my question was always, why? Why can't you try it? Um, and the last result usually is if he's still struggling, you pull him out and you
Right.
put him in a different environment. And thankfully we didn't, because of your help, we didn't need to do that. I'm sure there's going to be more pieces along the way as he goes to middle school and as he encounters more situations. And we spend so much time talking to our son and role playing different things, like how should this be, and could you imagine how this person felt when you
Right.
said this?
Mhm.
So um, it helps, but not as much as the adult in the room understanding our kid.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's also the adults who have seen hundreds of children in their own experience, someone who is an educator, who's been in the classroom, who's been in schools on multiple levels, worked as an administration. Like there's a different lens there that a lawyer or a parent sometimes might
Yeah,
have. And
no,
it's really, it's different. I remember you having these aha moments. You and I were working on a behavior plan, because it's important that parents feel like I want to have a say, my child needs to have a say. And
yeah,
how it was great to be able to think about how do you create something like that to address the needs of the child, right? And that was a really powerful shift where I think the school started really taking you seriously
yeah.
and being like, okay, like, yeah, you are getting a seat at this table. Where sometimes schools don't provide seats at the table for parents. So that's where, being able to say, like, no, this parent has a seat at the table, and guess what? They're going to be heard, they're going to be listened to.
Yeah,
So,
you
do you have any parting advice for parents who might be on the fence, who might be thinking, well, I don't know, I'm not sure. Should I invest? Should I not invest? Is this worth getting my kid what they need? What any parting advice you have for them?
I think most people want what their kid is looking for. Like
Right.
if your kid is saying, I need a break, and the teacher's ignoring them, that's telling you that there's a disconnect. And so we, as their parent, needs to be the voice of reason and the bridge to communicate so that the teacher knows and the teacher understands what is going on. But if you have this voice in your head that keeps saying something's not right, you need to listen to your intuition. And you don't necessarily need a lawyer to make it right.
Right.
You need an advocate. And I am so thrilled. I will always be glad that I engaged you to work with us, because it changed the dynamics of my relationship with my husband. It changed the dynamics of the relationship with my son when you communicated with him and you saw, oh, he's a really smart kid. He's just playing a game. We had a couple conversations where you said, Abby, he is pulling your leg. He's making it so that you believe him. And really, he's just making it up because that's what 9-year-olds do, you know? So you helped me see things from a different lens. And I think any child and family that works with you would be very lucky because you are all in for them.
Yes. No,
And
that's for sure.
our world definitely needs more of you, because these kids deserve an education. They deserve to feel good about themselves,
Yeah.
and they should not wear, like the dunce cap. We don't put the dunce cap on anyone. No
No,
one should feel that in their heart either.
no.
And you helped take the shame and the miscommunication and just calm it all down, and we have an excellent result. So I am just so happy, and anyone can contact me if they have questions about her read or her skills. But she was on it from day one and just made things so much easier. I hate writing letters to schools. Lots of people do, and she helped me. She helped me make it so much easier and brought the smile back to my son's face. So
Good.
thank you.
And yours too. You have a huge
Yeah.
smile on your face now.
I feel
Right.
like I can breathe because he's happy, you know?
Yeah. And what
He's
more
happy.
can we want as parents than to see our own children happy and thriving and
Right.
feeling successful as learners?
That's
You know,
right.
they spend a good part of their day in school. So we need to make
Yeah.
sure that they're feeling safe and successful in it.
Yeah. And we
Right.
need to bring that triangle back.
Yes,
Bring
we
that
are bringing the
triangle.
triangle
Yeah,
back. It is. It's
right.
important that we wrap around our children. And that's a
Yeah,
very important part of what we do is wrapping around the child and making sure that the home, the school, and the classroom, where we're making everyone accountable, right? Keeping people accountable for what needs to be done to help a kid.
that's right. These
So
kids have a right to learn too. Thank you
awesome.
so much.
Abby, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see how your child thrives in the future and in middle school, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
You literally changed the trajectory of his education.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
because you reached out to an advocate, which is awesome.
That's right. And then
Yeah.
it helped him feel more confident that, like, you know what? It's not me, mom. I I can change my part, but the adult can change theirs too.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Awesome. Well, Abby, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I hope if anyone is looking for a tutor, Dear Abby Tutors is an amazing company with 10 brilliant teachers who help children. And of course, we always want what's best for our kids. We want to empower our parents so that they can empower their children as well.
That's right.
All
That's
right.
right.
Thank you, Abby. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Take
All
care.
right. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.